Hey everyone, this is Chad Hoffman. I am going to talk to you about the research proposal, but I'm mainly going to focus on, we're going to talk about the anticipated findings and what research we have gathered at Alexandria High School for our ACT students. So let's go through. So our agenda for today, we are going to just do a little overview of the research proposal, and then we'll talk about the anticipated findings for this research. So, an introduction: Alabama high school juniors must complete the ACT test for schools and districts to meet the Every Student Succeeds Act. This started out as the No Child Left Behind Act under President George W. Bush, and then it has since evolved and progressed. And Barack Obama assigned the Every Student Succeeds Act, and it just has evolved over time. And so, states must have a reading and math assessment at the high school level. And so Alabama uses the ACT test to meet this federal accountability standard. So student test scores were impacted during and post COVID. So we say during because the 2019-20 school year, schools closed in March, and that is typically when schools give this ACT test. So schools were impacted during that. And then since post COVID, and we'll talk about why schools were impacted because of the pandemic since schools have resumed. So research for the impact to Alexandria High School and its students is still being conducted, and it's ongoing. So going back the 2018-19 school year, the composite ACT score for our high school was 19.4. The math was 18.4, science 19.4, English 19.3, and reading 20.2. So the ACT has a composite score. They take the average of the four subtest scores and give you your composite score. There's a lot of different things now where you have a super score, you have a STEM score, you have an ELA score, because they also have a writing proponent that doesn't always count towards certain things. So now they also have different proponents throughout. That's a lot of other research, but we are just focusing on the composite average and then the four main subtest scores in which students can benchmark to be college and career ready. So that's where we wanted to put our focus. So the 2019-2020 school year is when COVID occurred. In March of 2020 is when schools shut down. So we saw an impact. Scores remained relatively unchanged. You see a 19.3, an 18.3 in math, a 19.6 in science, a 19.4 in English, and a 19.5 in reading. That took the biggest hit, the reading subtest did. However, there weren't a lot of tests administered during that school year because once schools closed in March, colleges and universities also began realizing the impact that COVID-19 was going to have on their enrollment in the fall. So colleges and universities have waived ACT test scores for admissions. Many of those colleges and universities continue to waive the ACT test for college admissions. They're looking at high school GPA, they're looking at various other things and doing transcript audits to ensure students are ready for that post-secondary success. So since 2020, we take those school year 2019-2020 scores, we go to 2020 and 2021. This is where we saw a huge dip, not only in the scores themselves, but also in the number of tests given in that school year. So the composite for that school year dropped by 0.9 points. So 19.3 to 18.4. Math dropped from 18.3 to 17.3. That's 1 whole point. Science dropped from 19.6 to 18.3. That took the largest hit, and then 1.3. And then English dropped from a 19.4 to an 18.5. And then reading dropped 19.5 to 19. So we did see a difference there. And we wanted to do something to get those scores back up because this is not only our federal accountability, but we also have state accountability, and they give us a report card, and every school and every district is graded based on their college and career readiness, their ACT scores. So we want to get those scores back to where they were and then get them to go up. So what our administration did is going into the 21-22 school year, we hired 2 new teachers. So we went from having 3 English and 3 history teachers to 4 English and 4 history. We already had 4 math and 4 science teachers. So now we have 4 teachers in each core subject area. And for the most part, in English and history, the teachers are teaching students in that grade level. So we have a 9th grade English, 10th grade English, 11th grade, and 12th grade English teachers. And then in history is the same. However, math and science, because of the sequencing of courses from the State Department, those classes tend to be a little more mixed. You don't always have all 9th graders in a math class or all 10th graders in a math class. It'll be a mixture. So with the hiring of new staff and the focus being on that instruction and improving our ACT scores, since they took the nosedive in the previous school year, you see in 21-22, the composite average rose to 19.5%. So that's a 1.1 score difference. Math rose to 18.1, science rose to 1.4 or 19.7, sorry, a 1.4 point difference. English rose 19.9, and then reading rose 19.9. So we had a large increase in that 1 year. The number of tests administered didn't change because the classes have remained steady. So the junior class that's taking those assessments has remained relatively steady. The number of assessments hasn't changed drastically as it did in previous years. And so seeing the big jump, we have to attest to hiring additional staff members that can really focus on those subjects and those classes and encourage the students to do better. So our anticipated findings, what we would like to see for this school year, 22-23 school year, is that the average composite and sub-test scores on the ACT will increase by 1/2 of a point for all students taking the ACT in the 22-23 school year. So not only do we want to see the composite test score go up by 0.5, but we also want to see all of those sub-test scores go up by at least 0.5. So that's our goal. That's what we anticipate. Those scores are coming in. We're getting those in. That analysis will take place. And so we're really working to refine our plan over the summer and going into next school year. So that way we know exactly what we need to do. So in addition to now that we've hired those additional staff members, what can we do to continue to push our students to do better and to raise those ACT scores? Because it's an average, we're not going to see a large number, and it's not going to be a large jump like it has been before, like 1.1 to 1.4 point difference. That big jump's not going to occur because we have students in those classes. If you have 100 tests, you may have 50 students in that class who aren't going to go to college and are going to go straight to the workforce. They're going to go a different route. They may go trade school or things like that. And so you have other students that are going to go post-secondary education, and those students may take the test a little more seriously and try to increase their scores, because colleges and universities now are using the ACT test for scholarship purposes. They're not using it for admissions or anything like that. So the rate of increase in the score will not be as drastic over the coming years as it was coming from COVID and being virtual and reopening schools and all that to being fully in person, hiring additional staff and putting a focus on that. So we want to see a 0.5 overall increase for the composite and all the subtest scores. So there's a chart here for that. Really, we want to raise the composite to a 20, the math to an 18.6, the science to a 20.2 average, the English to a 20.4, along with the reading. So we want to raise all of those by 0.5 and get them in line. Now, if we can raise math to the 20 mark as an average composite score for that subtest, that would be great. That would mean every test that we have, we're averaging the 20 or so. Okay, so that would be a phenomenal increase if we could increase that math score to include and get to that 20, that average composite and that average test score of a 20 on the ACT. So here's the plan moving forward. Now that the test has been completed, our numbers are coming in. We're going to do a data analysis. So we're going to look at it in the month of May and over the summer. What can we do as a faculty and staff to get things rolling for next year? From August to February, it'll really be till May, but it'll be an ongoing process. We'll have instruction by teachers, and we'll focus on those deficits that we see as we go through the school year. Then in March of 2024, our 2 ACT certified staff members, we have 1 science teacher and 1 English teacher, they will complete a boot camp for ACT preparation. We can also get our math teachers together, a team of math teachers, to do an ACT boot camp a week or so before the test. So that way it's just a very intense ACT preparation environment. So then that way it's fresh on their minds and students will be ready. This will also be key because Alexandria High School and all schools in Calhoun County Schools are moving to a block schedule for the 23-24 school year. So students that have math in the fall may not have math in the spring. So this ACT boot camp that'll be held during the school day for students for math for the ACT will be beneficial to them if they're not in a math class. And even if they are, it'll be beneficial to them because it'll be keeping the math and reading and things on their minds. We're going to do a boot camp for both the math and the English. We'll include reading in that too. So like one day we can do English, one day we can do reading, and then we'll do a math one. If science wants to get on board and do that as well, it'll be up to administration and we can do that as well. But that'll be the plan. We really want to do an ACT boot camp for those students prior to testing in March. In March of 2024 will be the test administration. So the spring break for the school district is the very last week in March. So the test will be administered before the spring break. And that way students don't have that break before they take the test. Previous years, we've seen spring break be before the test. So that may have also impacted scores. So we'll see how having spring break at the end of March and giving the test before we go for spring break will influence scores as well. Then come May of 2024 and going into the summer, we'll do data analysis and then we'll change and improve the plan that we've made. So that's what it's about, is we've got to continuously evaluate and improve and make sure that our students are being successful and they get what they need. And so with the ACT test being a required test for all juniors in the state of Alabama, we'll continue to adapt our plan and get better and look at the data and see how we can continue to get better and help our students be successful. So I appreciate you all attending this presentation tonight. My name, of course, is there, my contact information. If you have any questions or need anything, be sure to let me know. But that's our plan with ACT testing and data analysis for that, and continuing to do research to get better, to improve our teaching, our instruction for students, so that way they are successful. Thank you all. Have a great night.